and it's very easy for us to say, well, we're America, we're the best. But are we actually? Do we have the best education? Do we have the best people? And what's so destructive to our society and what holds us back from competing is this idea that we're not all team players. We're not all in. And, America's a incredibly diverse, you got people coming from all walks of life. But if we can just work together and have this super like team spirit, team America, we're going to crush it together. Hey, wages are way higher here. Things cost more money. A brick in India costs 8 cents. It costs $8 here. I know, because I just built a house, right?
We can't figure out how to make them cheaper.
Right, right. But if we all were team players, we're all working together. And so I don't like this golden arm award. I'm like, that should be the bar. We should all just be a hand. And so that's why we call it the hand, which is our elite. It's our top graduate. And every year we put all the guys that made and girls that made hand status, we put them and we give away a really, really cool welding machine that's all slicked up. And so, because I want people to realize like, yes, you are something special, but that is the bar. Like that should be what we all strive for is work ethic, accountability, integrity with a skill, be a team player, go out there and make a difference,
Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. What is the strangest position you've ever been in?
Yeah.
You ever been at a bad spot?
Oh, yeah. I think back when I was a welder, I think about some of the, as a welder, we've been at crazy places all over the place, but it was a college campus, actually. What a lot of people don't know is there's tunnels that feed all the HVAC and all the utilities to all the different buildings. And a lot of them are covered up by sidewalks, but I've been down into some crazy tunnels. They're dark, they're humid, they're nasty. And, being down in there welding that pipe, I think that's probably the craziest place I've ever been in it from a welding perspective.
I've been around welders before that literally, I used to be in a union. I'm a plumber, but I was running some big jobs. And I've literally walked out before to talk to a welder, and welder will stand there and talk to you, and he'll already have everything. His weld is set. It's ready. He's ready to go. And he can stand there and talk to you, and he'll literally just reach down and start welding while he's talking to you. And he's welding along the bottom side of the pipe. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm working.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, you can weld that without looking at it. He says,
well, yeah, the root pass, the first pass,
Yeah. You probably don't want to cap it off, but it is what it is. So being down in a place like that, I remember watching a welder one day. We were working out at Texas Instruments, and same type thing, working outside, working pretty much underground. And we had opened up a hole and done some stuff. And he is literally laying in water.
Yeah.
We've got a pump running, trying to keep the water off the pipe and everything.
Yeah.
But he is literally laying on his back in water. I don't even think he had a real hood on because there wasn't enough room. So he had taken a lens, attached it to like this big round plate, and we like dug a hole to stick it down there where he could lay in there and slide up, get his head in a position, and reach around it and weld on the other side of it. Y'all get in some crazy places sometimes.
Welders can do it in all positions, as they say,
I'd like to say the same about plumbers. That's probably not true, but it sounds good. Looks good on a shirt anyway.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It wasn't until we used to take like cutting goggles and put an automatic lens in there and then take like a bandana and wrap it around the rest of your face for getting into some really tight areas. It wasn't until Outlaw Leather really started coming out with these trick hoods. They've got a pocket hood that unfolds out and it sits real close to your face. But that's the thing that a lot of people, when the pipe goes in, the pipe's steel. It's not like you can move it around, and
it doesn't wiggle.
Right. There's not a lot of flex.
There's no, hey, if I can push this over 1 inch, I can fit down in there.
Yeah. I was down working at a hospital. We were doing a shutdown and we were replacing this condensate tank. I also am in the union, I still actually have a book, but we were in this hospital, we're replacing a condensate tank, and condensate comes back from the boiler at 195 degrees. It's hot, it's this tight little room, and there was like a crack in the wall, And on the other side of the wall was a locker room, you know, and so I'm like jammed in this corner working on this pipe, and I see this little bit of light coming at me, you know, and so of course, you know, I'm like, well, what is that? And I look, I'm like, oh, it's a locker room on the other side. I'm like, oh, this could get, you know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen,
Absolutely.
you know, right? You know, working in the trades, you get to see all kinds of just crazy things because they allow you in places where, you know, the general public just, you know, is not going to be able to go. So we're like on the last weld of this shutdown, and I've peeked through this crack like a couple of times throughout the day, you know, as we're getting it. I'm sweating hot, you know, and the last weld was just jammed in this corner super tight. I couldn't see the backside, and the superintendent's running around like crazy. This is actually when I was an apprentice, and he says, "Is there anything?" You know, he would ask every hour, "Is there anything I can do? Like, what can I do to help make this go faster?" And finally, on this last weld, I said, "Tony, I need a mirror. Like, I'm going to have a mirror." "All right, no problem." He takes off, you know, and about that time, I see a little movement in that crack. And so I turn around, I'm like peeking through the thing, you know, and it's him, it's Tony. He comes blasting into this locker room. I don't know how he even got in there, you know, and he's like, does this look around, and there's a mirror on the wall. He like pulls out his pocket knife, carves this mirror off the wall. I'm like, he ain't gonna do it. Oh yeah, he definitely gonna do it. He steals this mirror out of his locker room in this hospital, comes running back. "Here, this work?" I said, "Well, like, we're gonna ruin it, you know. We're gonna spatter this thing all." He's like, "Just do it, you know. I'll ask forgiveness instead of permission, you know." So
I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. We got the weld done, got it tied in, you know, hospital, and you know, that was a steam system feeding the operating room, the main OR of the hospital. And that's what a lot of people don't, I think, realize, that how critical the trades are to, you know, you want to go in and get in a car accident and have to have a major life-saving surgery. Well, there's a couple welders that are working behind the scenes to make sure that can happen, you know. All the
welders, the plumbers, the electricians, the HVAC techs. You know, I tell everybody all the time, it does not matter where you go, look around you. It was built by tradesmen.
Right.
I don't care where you're at. You're on a bridge, you're in a building, you're in an apartment, you're in a house. It's tradesmen.
Yes.
Everything from welders, plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, roofers, drywallers, painters. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yes. And the thing is, we work with the DOD on some things. And one of the things that they told me, that, and this is huge, one of the things that they told me is that it's not the biggest, but it's one of the biggest national security threats that we face is the lack of skilled tradespeople. Because anything that you want to build, anything, it doesn't matter. Like you said, a bridge, a road, a building, a hospital, anything, and especially from the perspective of our military, you know, you think of any gun or ship or truck or airplane, all that stuff, you know, that's all made possible by tradespeople because of the manufacturing process that takes to build that A-arm, for the motor mount, for the wheel, for the everything. It's all made possible from tradespeople. And because people aren't going into these trades, it's one of the greatest national security threats that we face currently as a country. It's huge. It's absolutely huge.
So tell everybody real quick who you are and what you do.
So my name's Tyler Sasse, and I'm the founder of Western Welding Academy, the best welding school in the world. Pretty proud of that.
Voted on by pretty much everybody.
Right. Pretty much everybody.
There you go.
Right.
I like that.
Right. Yeah.
I like that.
So, I don't have a college degree. I don't have, I kind of was thinking about that. Like, a lot of people look down on me. You know, I dropped out of high school.
Dude, I'm right there. We got really? A very common story. Yeah, I've heard your story, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell that, because it's very interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, growing up in, where I grew up, my dad was, he's also a high school dropout, and I come from a family of 7, and there never really was like this expectation that I was going to go to college. I mean, not that it wasn't an option. Like, if I go to college, that's on me. You know?
I wanted to just play football.
Really?
And see more girls. But,
yeah, right. Yeah.
At least I'm honest about it.
Yeah, at least you're honest about it. Yeah. Yeah, and I never thought, you know, like my whole life, I just wanted to work. I wanted to do something. I want to create, you know. And at some point in that journey, I just didn't want to finish high school. And I couldn't wait to get my life started. But there was always this expectation, I think, like growing up, that to be somebody, to do something, you know. And I think parents nowadays like hold maybe a little too high expectations of their kids, you know. So I always tell my kids, like, like, see that guy that's drunk laying in the ditch? Like, that's the bar. Don't be that guy, you know, but I don't want to put too much on them, you know, let them be whoever they want to be. And I remember coming home, cause I when I dropped out of high school, you know, of course I went to work for a civil contractor, and, you know, this was during the housing boom of 04, you know, 03, 04, 05. And I had learned how to run an excavator, and I'm just like so proud. The boss put me in this like high stakes spot on the crew, you know, loading trucks. And I mean, I hit one truck that day, but didn't wreck anything. I kept them going fast, you know, and like an operator, you got to be good, you know?
Absolutely.
So I'd been practicing. And so I come home and I'm just like super excited. Like, and I'm telling my mom, like, Mom, I've loaded them trucks all day, kept them going, you know? And she's listening, you know, and she says, I get all done with my story, and she's like, you know, son, if all you ever amounted to was an operator, I guess that'd be okay. And I'm like crushed, you know? And so from that moment pretty much on, I was like, I gotta be somebody. And so, you know, king of trades is a welder. And so that, it was kind of like at that moment I decided I was going to be a welder.
And see, I've always thought it was a plumber. And the reason being, you know, plumbers protect the health of the nation. If it weren't, and most doctors will tell you, like, if it wasn't for plumbers, half the world would be dead.
Right. It's the second oldest profession, plumbing.
Plumbing. Okay. Right. What's the oldest?
Prostitution.
No, I think plumbers were first because we had to have a way to get cleaned up when they're done. I mean, I'm going to throw that out there. Right. You know? So, you know, you can tell me I'm wrong.
Right.
Somebody got that water out of the well up there so they could take a drink.
Right.
You know, because if it didn't have water, they weren't going to be worried about nothing else.
They didn't drink out of the creek?
I don't know. They may have, but, you know, it's possible. But that's one thing, and I'll give you one of these later, but on the inside of my wristbands, it says, blue-collar workers are the original thought leaders. That's
powerful.
It is, but it's true. I want you to think about it. And, you know, I tell other people this, normally not tradespeople, try to prove me wrong.
Right.
Because, you know, that first building, somebody walked in, a blue-collar worker, but that somebody with his hands picked up tools and said, look, I can build this. Or he built the tools to say, hey, I need to build this.
Right.
And if you can't, and you say prostitution, who do you think built the bed?
Well, I think it was probably like probably a bunch of leaves laid on the ground,
you know, and
or something.
It may have been, but I mean,
but I'm with you. Yeah. We made the world possible. The blue collar people, absolutely. Yeah.
So you know, I love the idea that the trades. You know, I try to tell everybody, guys, we would be nowhere without trades. Nowhere.
Right. And the thing, I think the difference really is this, that plumbers are incredibly important, because you're absolutely right. They protect the health of the nation. It takes every daggum one of us, I promise. That's what I tell people, like, right. You guys put your face where I poop.
Okay.
Right. And your hands. Okay. And I always tell people, welders make the fire. So if it wasn't for welders, y'all be still in the cave eating raw meat, right?
You know, and I've never looked at it like a welder makes fire. I mean, the caveman made fire with a stick, which then again, that's why they say plumbers are the smartest profession. As a plumber,
who's they?
Well, I mean, think about it. As a welder, you got to think of one thing, one.
Yeah.
Puddle.
But there's a lot. Like you got, you know, like
disagree, that guy. But I'm just telling you.
No, it's good.
No, it is.
Yeah.
So back to your story.
Yeah.
How did you get in the trades, and why welding? Why did you want to be a welder?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, and so pretty much at that moment, I was like, I'm not going to be an operator,
you bet.
right?
No, I get that.
I'm like, there was a lot of motivation, you know, and so I just thought of like the hardest trade there was, and originally I had kind of settled on lineman. Like there was a huge need for linemen, and
another cool career.
Way cool. Yes. Like
I mean, they got the stickers on the back of the car, you know, like I'm a lineman.
Yes. Like, and they get to climb big towers, and it's hard.
You bet.
And I think as a young man, like, what do young men want? We want to do something hard. We want to know we're needed, right?
Okay, now let me stop you there. What about the young men today?
I still feel like that's in us. Like every young man has a warrior spirit, and like the need to like, cause I can tell you from running crews and, you know, as I worked my way up in the trade, I obviously was a foreman and general foreman and superintendent. And as I was coming up and like, we would have a job that was, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but we would have a job And I'm like, man, like this job's gonna suck. This job, like, it's not. There's no glory in it, Like, I mean, you run work,
You bet.
And so I would get them young men up together, and I'd be like, hey, this is gonna suck, and I'll just tell them, this is really gonna suck, yeah, and it's gonna be hard, and we're gonna be sweating, and it's gonna be long days, and they, like, you could just see them, like, oh yeah, like, because. And at the time, I just knew it worked. I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I started reading a lot of books on psychology. It's because we want to, like, know that we're needed. And like, I think deep down, every man has this warrior spirit that he wants to go out there and crush something. And by kind of rallying them up and telling them it's really going to suck, oh, they were all in. It could have been like cleaning out a warehouse, sweeping a floor with a bunch of apprentices.
We do what sucks, and we do it great.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that.
So I kind of went back, like, lineman was a thing, but as I was, like, working my way through it, my dad was a pipe fitter. For a short period of time, he was a welder, and my uncle,
almost like a plumber. I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Right. And definitely not. Definitely very different. But it's pipe,
The union's here. Yeah. Our local's a combi local. Plumbers, pipe fitters, welders.
Yeah.
Not just a plumbing union.
One trade. Yeah. Or one car.
One haul.
Yes.
And not necessarily one craft, because it's a plumbing license that your first 2 years are about the same. Mm-hmm. Then they split you off. Now you're learning welding, grinding, cutting, stuff like that. Now you're learning setting fixtures, then this, that. So anyway,
makes sense.
I got my son in the union thinking he'd be a plumber, and he became a pipe fitter. He's
really?
like, I don't want to be a plumber.
Look at him. Good job.
Whoa.
I like that.
You'll meet him later. Yeah. He should be up here. So anyway, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt your story.
Yeah.
Dad's a pipe fitter.
Yeah. Dad was a pipe fitter. Dad trained my uncle to be a pipe fitter. And so at this point in my life, it was right when I turned 18, because now I'm, like, legal to work, and I can, like, pursue a career.
With tools, everything. Real job.
Right. Yeah. Real job.
Yeah. Not just making pizzas, because I did that too.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Just for a little while.
Yeah. And so my uncle comes by the house one day, and he says, hey, the union's in a 9-line bind for welders. The average age of a welder is 55 years old. And it takes,
and it probably still is. It's probably higher than that.
It's probably worse now.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the average age for plumbers in Texas right now, I believe, for a licensed journeyman or master, is like 57, 58 years old. Yeah. Guys, think about that. That's the average age. People getting in now are your next entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry
huge shortage, huge blue collar shortage, and going back to blue collar people. Literally make the world go around.
Amen, bro. We're on the same page on that one.
Yeah, we are.
It's just who's king. We'll have to discuss that more later.
So I got into what they called the 16-week pilot program at a local 290. This was Portland, Oregon, and I'm first married at this point. I got married really young, and so I'm driving about an hour and a half, 2 hours one way, learning to weld, driving back. And I went in there, you know what the UA-21 is? It's a 60-10, 70-18. It's UA cert.
Okay.
So that was the bar. Like, if you come into this and you pass.
Okay. Yes. And how many different certs are there in the union?
Oh man, I don't know. Like, probably hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And each job, just for those of y'all that don't know, may have different certs that are required to be a welder.
Yes, on that particular project.
Yes. Just making sure everybody understands.
Yes, yeah. And the UA-21 is like the baseline. It's like the kind of the bottom. Like, it's stick rod.
Introductory level stick rod welding.
Yep. And they're like, after this 4 months, if you pass this, like, we're good. We'll put you out in an apprenticeship at, I think they gave you a 1.5 year credit. So it was like a second-year apprentice. And it was $20 an hour, which at the time I was making $20 an hour. And so I go through this program, but in 2 months, I passed that UA-21. And so I'm like, well, so I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, can I leave early? Like, can I go to work now?
Get me in now.
Right. And he's like, nope, you got to stay the other 2 months. And I said, well, what else can I learn? And so coming out of that, I learned how to TIG weld. I learned how to downhill stick weld. And I learned how to weld stainless. I ended up walking out of there with 4 UA certs, which really kind of put me
ahead of everybody.
Way ahead. Yeah. Me and my buddy, my best friend, we went in that together. And I mean, it was cool. We went to work for a really, really good contractor. J.H. Kelly is the name of it. And I worked there 6 years. and I got to go all over the country. I got to see some of the most incredible projects from the ground up. I mean, we worked at U of O, University of Oregon, building a natural gas-fired power generation plant, like a mini one. So we got to see every little tiny part and piece of it. Welded the main steam on that. I got to go to a North Slope of Alaska. Like I just had, in those 6 years it was awesome. Like the best time of my life.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it because I know a lot of traveling welders. Mm-hmm. I got a guy in the local here in 100, and he traveled a lot. And every year he'd go up to like North Dakota or something and weld on the pipeline. Mm-hmm. What is the best week, and it doesn't have to be you, the best weekly paycheck you or another welder you knew brought home?
Golly.
Oh wait, best weekend.
Right.
I know. It's a good question, but I want the people to understand.
Yeah.
At the time you're 25.
Right. Young.
Yeah.
Really young.
You're a young man getting into the trades.
Yep.
Getting in very well, because if you got 4 certs before you got out when you should have got 1, I teach people always try to be the very best. If you're not, why? Why not?
Right. Well, okay. And why would you want nobody? I don't believe anybody in this world wants to be number 2 or number 3. I mean, if you do, you and I probably aren't going to get along if that's your mentality.
And I agree with you.
Number 1. Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that get in, they hear about the money. Look, I just want to get in and make a check. I just want to be, I want to be a plumber so I can make a check. No.
Right. You should be
you want to be the best plumber.
Yeah.
Because then you can make the best check.
Right.
So back to the question.
Yes.
You or another welder. Doesn't have to be you.
I think the best check I ever got was $12,000.
For 1 week's worth of work.
1 week's worth of work. I mean, and don't get me wrong, this wasn't
a
40-hour
week.
Right. It was and
that's where I was going to go next. 12, 14, 18-hour days?
I think maybe even like 16, 18-hour days.
Okay.
This particular job was like very close to where I was living at the time. And I mean, we would go out there and work. I'd just work until we couldn't see anymore. I mean, I love to work. I love long days.
I'm just like you.
Yeah.
When the jobs that I had younger didn't have overtime or anything like that, I learned to tend bar. I learned to be a bouncer. I learned to be a bodyguard. I learned to build redwood decks. I learned to build fences. If I'm not at work, I'm at work.
Right.
And if I'm not at work, I'm getting in trouble. So I better go home, get to bed, or get another job.
Right.
So
stay busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love to work. I love to work long days, short nights. I mean, that's just, I've been that way since, because I love making a big check, and but really consistently after I left the West Coast, I went to the Midwest and I started pipelining, and I mean, I had a lot of $10,000 a week paychecks, and there's people that can't fathom that, and to me, I would get a $4,500 paycheck and be like, man, this is a half a week, and so my best year ever. And, look, I'm a high school dropout.
No, I get it, brother. I fit those same shoes.
Yes. And I'm a high school dropout. My best year ever, I made $352,000. Think about that, people. That is huge. As somebody who literally, like I was thinking about this the other day, I have a 9th grade education making $352,000. It's only in the blue collar world where you can do that. Literally, only blue collar world.
I love that. And the thing I want people to hear and think about, that's not as a company owner.
Right. That's as an employee working by the hour.
That's a time card punching employee.
Yes.
And yeah, $350,000. And I know plumbers that make $250,000
easy. Yeah.
And thinking, man, these guys are crushing it.
Yeah. And
so we're getting closer to the welder, maybe king. I'm just gonna, hey, I'm gonna back up just a little bit.
Yeah. And I think I have heard one of my brother-in-laws is a lineman, and a couple months ago I was talking to him, and he said, man, we've been working 120-hour weeks like crazy, and I'm like, wow, and he said, my foreman is on track to make $400,000 this year as a lineman. And I'm like, holy crap. He said, I love working for the guy, but he volunteers for every overtime, every shutdown, every outage, and I'm like, well, hey, the guy's going to make $400,000,
Absolutely.
But a lot of people don't realize you go to college, and we as a nation, we've pushed college. We've like as a society for 3 generations, and I know this because our blue collar tour, we travel all across the country talking to kids about trades and why it's important. It's not just like welding and plumbing, super, super important, right? But electricians, machinists, mechanics, like there's a ton of trades out there. Every single one of them are important.
Absolutely.
And that's what our blue collar tour is all about, is like just talking to these kids and inspiring them. And what just absolutely blows my mind is, because I think about it from every perspective, not only do you get to work with your hands, you get to build something, you get to contribute to society in a huge way. Like, don't get me wrong, like accountants are important, but with AI coming out, like I promise you in another couple of years, I'm not going to need an accountant because I'm going to feed that crap into a computer. It's going to spit out the amount of money I owe in my taxes.
It's going to read the tax book and say, dude, if you would do this.
Yes, exactly.
You wouldn't have to pay all this.
Yes. But who's going to change out the wheel bearing on my pickup?
Somebody
is AI going to change?
On.
Right. And that's what, and so we go around the country where we talk to these kids. We go to all these different high schools. 2023, we went to, from West Coast to East Coast,
30?
27. I think we ended up with a big snowstorm. We had 30. Yeah, we had 30 stops planned. We ended up going to 27. I think overall like 20,000 kids, and so I try to like really, when I tell that story of like, well, here's what you're going to be able to do. You're going to be able to do some really cool work. You're going to contribute to society. Your job's safe. It's never going to be replaced by a computer. And then from a return on investment perspective, here's what you're going to invest from a time, from a money, from a everything perspective. And I lay that out, make this just like to me, like it's just so black and white. Like it just like, how could you
this makes comprehend? No sense whatsoever.
Yes. How could you even consider something else? Yes. And so I'll be sitting there talking to like a high school principal or a counselor and it just blows my mind because it's so ingrained into like people that haven't, like guys like you and I, we understand the world, right? Like you said, the original thought leaders. I love that. And so I'm talking to a high school principal or a counselor or something, and they're like, wow, that blows my mind. All, as I'm telling about like, well, here's what the trades are and here's what they do. And here's what it means to be a tradesperson. And at the very end of the conversation, they're like, I've truly enlightened them, right? I feel like that. And then they go, but my son or daughter is going to college. And it used to be so frustrating to me to have done all that work and they're still like, but my kid is going to
always ask them why.
Right? Yeah.
I pause and kind of nod and then say, why?
I like that.
And I make them think, why?
Right.
I mean, I just want to know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they stop and they look at you. And I've had them tell me, well, it's the experience of college. Is that worth $200,000? Right. Is that I can fly them around the world and let them stop in 20 different countries
and give them a way better education than you're going to get.
Spend a week in each one.
Right.
Go there, spend no money or spend none of your money while you're there. Find out how to make a living in a week to where you can afford to eat.
Right.
You're going to get an education.
Right. You're
going to come home saying, dude, you drop me off anywhere.
Yeah.
I can handle it.
Yeah.
And I think that's phenomenal. I ask them why. Why?
I like that.
I've explained everything to you. You've heard me speak.
Yeah.
I think I'm not BSing.
Right.
Why are you sending your child to college?
Right. Yeah.
And then just stop and wait. And man, you can see those wheels. Man, I got to come up with something good.
Yeah.
There's not a great answer unless you say they're going to be a doctor. They're going to be a lawyer.
Right.
Maybe an engineer of some sorts.
Right.
I know. I'm not going to say as much. Don't get me wrong. Don't want to piss off the college grads here. As a lot of mechanical engineers, you study the formulas that look. I can figure out how much air goes through here. I can figure out how much water. Yada yada yada. Why college?
Right, but even with AI coming out, AI is huge.
It's going to answer it for us.
Yeah, and I think of like there's a handful because I go back to like I believe that there's programs now where you can put it in. You say, hey, I got to build a bridge, right? So normally I would need a civil and a mechanical structural engineer to build this bridge. But there's programs now where you can say, hey, I'm going to span this distance. and you plug all this data in, and it just craps you out these drawings. And I'm thinking like even engineers are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, Okay. But a doctor.
So we're talking doctors and lawyers, lawyers are already being replaced.
Yes. There's an AI program that just passed the bar exam, and my attorney's great, and I love him, and he keeps me out of
Lots of trouble.
Yes. AI is quickly replacing these white collar jobs at a rate that our world has never seen. Mm-hmm. And what is going to offer, like, if I'm a young person going out into the world and I'm like, I need security, I need a great job, I don't want to be replaced, I need, the biggest thing is work ethic, accountability, integrity, and a skill. And that's my message to the world. If you can work hard, you are accountable for extreme ownership. Jocko Willink, huge fan.
Love it. Yep.
And integrity, like I do what I say I'm going to do, and I'm skilled. I'm a skilled tradesperson. Mm-hmm. Look, brother, you got the world by the tail. That's the way I see it.
So what made you want to be the best?
I think that was just ingrained in me from day one. Like, I don't want to be second place. I don't want to be third place. I want to be the best. And I remember as a kid when I went in middle school, there was a little quote on the wall of the hallway that I used to walk down every day, and it said, and I don't remember the exact what it said, but it said if you aim for the moon and you miss, at least you'll land among the stars. Something along those lines.
I remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think about that. Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be absolute one in my industry, in my circle of whatever it is that I'm doing. And hey, if I come in second place, at least I'm going to be among the stars.
You know what I mean? Way up there.
Right. I'm going to be way up there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, in the union, there's training, there's certifications, there's your certs, everything you've got to get. If somebody today in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, decided, hey, I want to be a welder, mm-hmm. what would you recommend to them?
And I get this question quite often from
all around the country.
Yeah, like I want to, and they say, hey, I want to be a welder. What is my clear path? And what a lot of people don't realize is that welding is a lot like plumbing, right? It's a huge umbrella that covers.
Yeah, it goes from here to here.
Yes. Yeah. And welding is the same way, and I always ask them, like, well, what kind of welder are you going to be? Are you going to be the guy that makes the handrail? I've got some beautiful handrail at my house made by a welder. Are you going to be that guy? Like an ornamental? Are you going to create something that's maybe it doesn't have a lot of structural, but it's beautiful to look at, an ornamental welder. Are you going to be a structural welder? We got big skyscrapers and all that stuff gets welded together. Or are you going to be at the top of the top, a pipe welder? And really, I mean, with social media and the internet nowadays, you can very easily research each one of these and see what you want to be, right? What really
you can research any trade. Yes. And I want people to think about that. You can literally get online.
Yep.
People like me and you.
Yep.
I teach you what plumbing is, how to do it. You teach them welding, how to do it, all the different things about it. But they can do that for any trade.
Yeah.
And literally find out and get and watch and see, look, what's a day like? What kind of things do they work on?
Right. And you go back 50 years ago to get into the trades, you had to know somebody, you had to be mentored, and the trades really go back to that apprenticeship model where there's a master, there's a journeyman, and the indentured servitude, you go back far enough, like you indenture yourself to this journeyman and they would teach you over this 5-year period or 7-year period, 4-year period, whatever it is. But nowadays, like there's courses, there's things that you can see all over the place. Like the internet has broadened this information. You don't have to indenture yourself or, only go to a master. There's the information on the internet is so available. You can sign up for a course. You can shortcut that time by learn. If you actually want in that trade, right? You can buy a digital course, or you can do you can shortcut that dramatically. I think that's what's really, really powerful about the internet. Going back to like the different levels of welding, as someone who wants to be a welder, like figure out what kind of welder you want to be. And there's whether you want to be a structural steel, ornamental, you want to build the railing on a deck, on a house, you want to be a pipe welder, you need to go to Western Welding Academy. by far the best. Our program, we've thought about everything, and really the biggest thing that we found that we focus on, it is absolutely teaching the skill, but it's the work ethic, the accountability, and the integrity.
Everything
piece.
Behind the skill that makes you professional.
Yes. If you got to have those three things and the skill. And we worked backwards. We said, okay, we're going to build a product. We're going to release it to the world. It's going to be a human, right? And they're going to have all these, and we spent a ton of time really researching and like thinking about like, and who's the best welder we know, and what do they do, and what makes them the best, and it's not just a skill. Like that's kind of how we like discovered that. Right,
you got to have a golden arm.
Yes.
Okay, you got to have a golden arm.
Yes, you do,
because you're going to be judged by every other welder that you're next to.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a big deal. But that's not what makes you the best.
Right. It's that work ethic, accountability, integrity piece that really brings you to that super high level, and then we broke it down like, okay, how do we teach that? Like we didn't buy a curriculum. We built it from the ground up. We took the very best thing we could imagine as a human that was just a big, rock star welder, worked all the way back. And then we attached hours to every little phase. Okay, how long is it going to take us to teach somebody to make a fillet weld? And then we tested it over and over with our students. And then we started, okay, how do we teach a fillet weld faster, more efficiently? And because when we worked those hours down, then we added more to the course, right? And so over the last 3 years, we have done an insane amount of work on, and that's why it's the best. That's why it's the best curriculum. That's why we are the #1 welding school in the world, voted by literally everybody.
I love that. So a kid walks out of high school 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. We're in August right now. Mm-hmm. Kid walks out, let's say April 1st. How long does it take him to become a welder?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. Our students come from, 98% of them come from all across the country. You drive through our parking lot, you're going to see license plates from every state in the union. I mean, it's super cool. They come down there, they come for 6 months. And I think the most rewarding piece of my job is hearing the stories of these kids when they graduate. They're out there 6-8 months, and they call me up. Tyler, dude, I just made, $4,800. They're just like, yeah, they're making $100,000+ a year. They're, and I've had so many conversations with parents like, well, I don't know, is this really right? We've been saving for this college. We've been putting money in this college fund for little Johnny for years, since he was born, and he's got he's got 200,000 in there, and you're telling me he only needs, 26 grand. And I'm like, well, yeah, and he's going to make way more money than whatever you had planned for him. Yeah. And I think that's, if
the CPA son is not going to make.
Right. They're going to come out making 40, 50,000, 60 maybe. And the thing that in the corporate world, it's a ladder. You got to climb that ladder. It's not like if I'm a CPA and I come into this firm, it doesn't matter that, say I work hard or fat, like there's still this, like you got to work in this department for 3 years to be eligible for a promotion. It's not like in the trades, it is not like that, right? It's, in some cases there's an apprenticeship that you got to do. But when the superintendent comes out and says, hey, I'm putting a crew together to go do this job, he doesn't look around and be like, well, I got this guy, he's only been there 7 years. He doesn't do any of that. He's like, who's gonna build this thing the fastest, the most efficiently? And you can be 19 years old and be on that crew if you want it bad enough, right? And you put in the work. And so the ladder, climbing the ladder in the blue collar space, way faster, way easier, way less competition. It's just 1,000% different than the corporate blue collar world. I mean, it just is.
Oh no, I've seen it for years. That's why I teach the things I do. I don't teach them how to join pipe. I don't teach them how to pull wire. I don't teach them to weld. Mm-hmm. I teach them, look, if you want to be the very best, this is what you've got to do. This is what you've got to do. I love that. And because I learned that when I got in the union. I got in the union after 17 years of plumbing. Mm-hmm. Then I got in the union. Mm-hmm. Well, not long later, I was a foreman, a superintendent, a general foreman. Mm-hmm. It was like, man, I am moving up here. Mm-hmm. When I was an hourly employee in the union, I made double scale. Okay? Wow. As an hourly employee.
Yeah. You were a doer.
Yeah, you bet. I made things happen. And if somebody needed something done, it was, hey, here's what I need done. Yep. And they walked off.
Yep. Roger will handle it.
Cool. Got it. See you later.
Yep.
I may see him next week, next month. Didn't matter. I got whatever done that needed to be done.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't learn that. And that's why I like about the way you're teaching and what you're teaching. A lot of people don't learn that. They just think, look, man, I've got a golden arm.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a bad attitude.
Right.
You show up late.
Right.
You're a prima donna.
Yes.
Guess what?
You just said the word prima donna.
Nobody wants you.
Right. Right. Yes.
I'll tell you.
And in the welding trade, let me just be very clear. That is a stigma, that prima donna welder, well, I'll make the world go around, and don't get me wrong, like it is, I believe with every part of my heart and being that welding is the king of trades. I believe that, but a welder with a bad attitude, a welder that won't work and isn't a team player, like I'm not that guy and I'm not going to be part of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
the best plumber in the world with a bad attitude sucks.
Right. I would rather take a guy with mediocre skill set that has a great attitude.
I can get a lot more done.
Yes. He's coachable.
There's these 3 puppies walking down a sidewalk.
Yeah.
A plumber, a pipe fitter, and a welder.
Yeah.
And these 3 puppies are walking down a sidewalk, and there's a fence next to them, and there's a stake on the other side. And they stop and look at it, and it smells really good. And that plumber puppy says, you know what? We're going to dig down. We're going to dig over, and we're going to come up right below that stake. And the 3 of us are going to eat good.
Yeah.
Pipe fitter says, no. We're going to build a gantry. And we're going to hoist ourselves up, and we're going to gantry across, and we're going to lower right down to it, and we're going to eat good. That welder says, no. We're going to sit here and cry about it till somebody brings that steak to us. I'm just saying. It's about real life, though. I hate to say it. It kind of is. It kind of is.
I see where you've definitely worked with some welders. I can tell.
I have. And look, I love my welders. Yeah. I do. I've been with some good ones.
Yeah. And there was I'm going to tell a little story. I don't want it to get me in trouble, but as a welder, you're always at the end of the line. And because I've thought about that. Why is it that welders are crybabies? Why is it that we're always belly aching or like, and when I say we, I don't like that mentality. So I can't really say we, but
you've been around enough to see it.
1,000%.
No, I get it.
Yeah. And why is that? And it's, I believe it's because we're always at the end of the line. Like we're always like the last kind of people to, when you're running pipe in a building, right? You go through and you drill up into the concrete, you hang a rod, you put a hanger, so somebody's got to go through and put all the hangers in there. The layout guy, well, first the layout guy lays everything out, and then the hanger guy, and then they put the pipe in. And at the very end, the welder has got to, weld the pipe together. And so if the layout guy didn't do it right, or the pipe's short, or it's too long, or if the hanger guy didn't do his job right, we're so dependent on, and so like we're just left with like the crap. Make it work and make it X-ray, make it good, right? Yeah. And I think that's why.
Make it work perfect.
But you got to be the hero every day, right? Like every day when you walk out there, you're the guy, you're the solution. And I love being the solution. It fulfills me truly as a human, right? Like I love knowing that I'm needed. And so I think that's why people are crybabies. And I was working on a job out on the East Coast, and most welders have this mindset of like, well, when they get it ready for us, kind of like what you said, we're gonna cry until and so they're like, when they get it ready for us, we'll go in there and do our job. And so when you work in the pipeline industry, there's many different positions on that pipeline, from the front end to the back end, and I generally work in the fab yard or on tie-ins. And I think a lot of that's because I've just worked in so many different parts and pieces of the industry that I can fabricate, I can plumb level square, I can make, I can take a pile of crap and make it nice. And so in the tie-in world, when you're on tie-ins, almost every weld you make is jacked up. Like it's too tight, it's too wide, it's we got equipment pulling on it, and there's a bunch of high-low mismatch, and it's, normally, you go out in pairs, right? So you got a welding partner and you each have a helper. Normally, my welding partner, we're going to sit here and wait, and this one particular job, I got this guy, he loved to work the way I work. Like let's go in there, let's be team players, let's ingrain ourselves, because normally the welders, we're kind of like our own little, and you kind of been saying this, we're kind of our own little like clan. Like we stick together, and so we pull up to this crew, and the guy says, we go to the safety meeting, the crew safety meeting, which is kind of rare. Welders usually don't, we're sitting in our trucks, and so at the end of the safety meeting, the time foreman comes up and he says, hey, so I got this plan, and we're going to blah, blah, blah. And me and my welding partner both standing there going, oh man, like that's going to kind of suck. Cause he's talking about we're going to make over there. That's going to be kind of tight. And so we're both like sitting there going, hey, look, if you do it this way.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we're like, hey, what if we start here and we put that in while we're welding that, you guys are digging over here. And we kind of lay out this whole plan to him that's like way different than what he had. He's like, wow, that would, okay, you think we get all that done today? And it was 5 welds. And we're like, yeah. If you do it like this, we easy we go get that done. Okay. He says, you know what? We're going to do it like that. So he relines the crew out. They start digging in one spot. They set one. We jump down there. We're making the weld. We get it done. About the time we get it done, they're ready for the next one. We roll over there. Very end of the day, it's like a 10-hour day, 12-hour day. He's like, wow, I can't believe we got 5 welds done. This blows my mind. He said the other set of welders I had, we were getting 1 or 2 welds
a day,
yes. And so I'm like, hey, buddy, and I just luckily drew a welding partner that had the same mentality as I had, right? And so I said, hey, buddy, we work this way every day, but that costs fuel. Put a little diesel in that welding truck for me, would you?
Yeah.
And he's like, whoa, because in a union, that's a bonus. And if you give one welder a tank of fuel and then somebody finds out about it, you got to give them all fuel.
I know all about it.
Right. So he's like, oh man, I don't know. I could lose my job for that. And I said, man, we just got 5 welds. You're normally used to getting 2. I'm pretty sure that this contractor is fine giving $100 worth of diesel for these welding trucks, And I don't know. He kind of starts crawfishing a little bit, and
that's okay. Tomorrow we can just do 2.
No. And I just say, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't want to put you in a spot or make you, okay. So he's like, he gave up on that pretty easy and walks away. The next day we get there and we pull up, and he kind of runs up. He's like, all right, what's the plan? And we're like, well, you tell us, you got one ready. We'll weld it for you. And, okay. So he goes back out there and he that day we got 2 welds. And very end of the day, he comes walking up to me. He says, man, I got to thinking about this fuel thing. I think maybe I'll fuel up them welding trucks. I said, hey, and so sometimes you gotta show people. You try to tell them, but it was that skill that I had, right? And the mentality of the work ethic, the accountability, integrity. That's what. And the whole rest of the job, he fueled them welding trucks up. We got 4, 5, 6, 8 welds a day. Like we were the best crew. And I think it's a mentality and the skill set that really put me in that position to be able to negotiate. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to have a fuel bill,
And you can do that in any trade.
Right.
When you're good at what you do.
Yes.
Even the union, your scale is negotiable.
Absolutely. There's just a minimum. There's just a minimum.
That's why I tell people, scale's minimum wage.
Yeah.
If you're in the union and you're making scale, guess what?
Right.
You're just a hand.
Yeah.
So hand. Let's talk about top hand.
Mm-hmm.
You do a top hand award.
Yeah, and why do we call it the hand?
Because that's what you are, brother.
Right. And I go back to that prima donna, crybaby, well, I'm a golden arm, and there's a bunch of other organizations out there that have, they call it all kind of, the golden arm award or the whatever. I'm like, look, if you have these things, because I think about I go back to that fuel story, right? I was just a hand. I call myself like I shouldn't be something special. I feel like everybody should operate that way, right? Like
this is my job.
This is what I do. This is what
I do every day.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a team player. I'm gonna get in there. I'm gonna crush it. And I try to make that to where it's like everybody should want to do that. Everybody should participate, because when you really go back to it, like America, we compete on this global scale. Like maybe you don't realize this, maybe you do, but we compete with Russia, China, North Korea, South Korea. I mean, Taiwan, every one of them. We compete with all of them. And it's very easy for us to say, well, we're America. We're the best. But are we actually, do we have the best education? Do we have the best people? And what's so destructive to our society and what holds us back from competing is this idea that we're not all team players. We're not all in. And, America's a incredibly diverse, you got people coming from all walks of life. But if we can just work together and have this super like team spirit, team America, we're going to crush it together. That's what because hey, wages are way higher here. Things cost more money. A brick in India costs 8 cents. It costs $8 here. I know, because I just built a house, right?
We can't figure out how to make them cheaper.
Right, right. But if we all were team players, we're all working together. And so I don't like this golden arm award. I'm like, that should be the bar. We should all just be a hand. And so that's why we call it the hand, which is our elite. It's our top graduate. And every year we put all the guys that made and girls that made hand status, we put them and we give away a really, really cool welding machine that's all slicked up. And so, because I want people to realize like, yes, you are something special, but that is the bar. Like that should be what we all strive for is work ethic, accountability, integrity with a skill, be a team player, go out there and make a difference,
How'd you get started in social media?
I mean, I had as a superintendent, as a welder foreman, I had a LinkedIn page that I checked like every 6 months. I mean, I didn't like update this thing. I mean, I just had it because I'm like, well, you got to have something out there. You got to have a little shingle, so people know who you are. And but when I started Western Welding Academy, it was pretty clear that I was going to have to get involved with social media, which I have like a very one-track mind. Like, you put me on something, I am going to work myself to absolute death to accomplish that goal, whatever it is.
You bet.
And so, like, I would see people on the jobs, like, on their phone swiping, and I'm like, man, that's what's holding them back. Like, they're not all in on something. And so, but when I got into how do you reach people? How do you, because everybody's in there swiping, everybody's on
reach
there.
Them where they're at.
Yes. How do you reach them where they're at? And so that's where social media, like, we started that just posting, what we were doing, and then it really took off. It blew up, and so and from a business owner, if and I get calls all the time. People say, hey, how do I do this, or how do I reach more people, or what do I do, and I tell them, like, are you on social media? Well, no, I'm on doing radio ads or something. I'm like, I'm not against radio ads, but you got to reach people where they're at. Right. Why? Like
my favorite question, brother. Why?
Because we're creators, right? The platforms pay us. And so when I explain that concept to some of these other business owners, I say, look, everybody knows what cost of acquisition is. What does it cost you to acquire a customer? Our customer pays us to convince them to become a customer. We're just out there telling the stories of the things that we're doing, what we're accomplishing, and the platforms pay us. And so we always it's always a negative number. Like, we have no cost of acquisition because we're on social media. Mm-hmm. And when I explain that to other business owners, it's just like, wow, like, you mean I could, because I got to allocate 10% of my revenue. Like, well, no. Like, go ahead and turn that around. How about you get 10% of your revenue?
Yeah. What if you made 10% more?
Would that be cool?
More?
Yeah. Yes. And they're like, wow, I'm like, okay, just turn that phone around, start talking to it. Like you were saying earlier, the first 100 videos is going to suck. That's all right. Just get through them. My dad always used to say, go for no. When you're out there beating the street trying to get more work, go for no. There's only so many no's out there. There's only so many bad videos you're going to make, and eventually you're going to get good at them.
Tell everybody where you're at on social media.
The main company page is at Western Welding Academy. Any social media platform, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. My personal pages are Real Tyler Sasse, at Real Tyler Sasse, on every platform. You can find me there. And obviously, smash that like button. Give me a follow. Check us out.
What did you learn when you first started out? The in-depth immersion training in the beginning. What did you learn in that made you think, look, I want to do this. This is good. I picked the right place.
From the school perspective, you mean?
The 6-week training program where you were going to get a cert and you got 4. Yep. What did you learn in there? Or was it just the first time you pulled a hood down? You're like, okay, I'm home. This is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah.
In high school, the only classes I really, really enjoyed was shop class and welding class. And so, I was like pretty good at welding in high school, right? So, fast forward years later, I walk into this 16-week pilot program with the union, and I'm thinking like, I got this. I'm going to be good at welding because I was good at it in high school. Boy, let me tell you what, I didn't have an absolute clue. Like the very first thing they teach you is beads on plate. And I'm like, man, I looked at the thing, you know, and the curriculum is very simple. I look at it, I'm like, I'm going to be off beads on plate by noon, you know, because I can run a bead on plate. Well, turns out it's a little tougher than you think, you know. But, you know, I was making progress every day, and I love that. Like, I love a challenge. And you know, also in that school, we got to see the journeymen coming in. Every Friday they would test. And I got to be around those guys and hear the stories of what they were working on. And it just, I love it. It's a highly skilled trade. It is one of the only trades that you can't just immediately reproduce one in a few weeks. Like it take, you know, because you could take a big building. You're going to build a big building. You know, we could take a bunch of people that are kind of low skilled, and we could kind of segment them out and be like, all right, look, you're going to put these bolts in. And in a little bit, we could teach you, if that was the only job you had was to put bolts in, you know, put bolts in, tighten them up, and here's how you torque them. Or we could just have a guy just going, just put the bolts in. And then the next guy, here's how you torque them, right? You can segment out a job to where like, go back to hangers, you know. You could take a guy, hey, you're just going to drill this rotohammer and hang this wedge anchor on it. You know, in a short amount of time, I could teach you to be the best hanger. Just drill here, you know. But a welder, it's like, you can't just in about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, like say, hey, and make them a welder that can pass X-ray every time, that can make these really, really hard welds. And you know, a nuclear powerhouse, you know, everybody loves electricity, right? In there is main steam that operates at thousands of PSI pressure, that if that thing blows up, like a steam explosion, it's going to kill everybody, right? Like no survivors in a, you know, half a mile radius. That's a really important job. You know, the guy that welds that pipe together, that's incredibly important. And so it takes 6 months to train a guy to that level. And that's kind of one of the reasons like why I say it's the king of trades, is because it takes so much to bring somebody to that level to where they're able to operate and make, you know, every single time they step up to take a swing at that ball, they're going to hit a home run. They're going to pass X-ray. And it's not that you go through your entire life and don't ever have a bad weld. Right. I mean, it happens to all of us, right? At some point.
Everybody busts an X-ray every now and then.
And everybody misses a welding test every now and then, you know. But and that's why the pay is so high, is because we're held to such an incredibly high standard that, you know, you may drive all the way across the country. And I've had, you know, there's been times in my career where I was an idiot. I spent all my money. I didn't have any money. And so I had to drive.
Most of us did in the phase.
Right. At some point, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I drove 6 states away, and I had enough money to make it there, but I had enough money to make it back if I didn't make that welding test. That's real pressure. You know what I mean? That's so, and obviously if you really set out to be the best, you know, it gives you a little more peace of mind. Like, I've made this 100 times, you know, I can pass this. I know I don't have enough money to get back, but I'm going to make it, you know. So it's been like the welding trade, being able to travel from coast to coast all over the country. It's been insane. I've got to meet people. I've got to see things. I've got to be in rooms of just craziness, you know, and making a ton of money while I'm doing it. You know, it's been the best. Being a welder was literally the best decision I ever made in my life.
It makes it interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the very first day you walked out of your house to go weld, to go be a welder, if you could take everything you know now and go back and stand outside the door, and when little Tyler walks out, you get to say, hey, bud, let me tell you something.
What would that be?
What would you go back and tell little Tyler walking out that very first day?
Oh, I mean, I think the most important thing that I've learned is how people truly are. Like, what drives us and inspires us. I was driven and inspired at a young age, but I didn't know why, or I didn't know. And so, like I got fired twice from the same company, right? A lot of people don't know that. And it was because I was so hard-headed. Like I didn't understand like the way you talk to people. You can't, go in there like I was so frustrated with like how slow things moved or the inefficiencies. I really frustrated with inefficiencies. And so like if I could go back and tell myself something, as an 18-year-old just stepping out into this whole wide world of welding, I would go back and explain how people are and how to communicate, how to effectively communicate to people. And I think that really team spirit, work with people, like there has to be a lead dog in the pack, breaking trail, but the way you do things and the way you talk to people and the way you handle yourself in certain situations goes a long ways, And I had just this hard, painful time of like, and I remember the owner of the company telling me like, hey, you're an incredible worker. Like when we got to put a shutdown, we know something's got to get done. We send you. Like we know you're going to get it done. Man, if you could just learn how to communicate with people, and like your life would be so much smoother. And so it was actually at that moment when I got fired the second time, and I'm in the big office talking to the man, the owner of the company, and he's like, "Look, dude, you're gonna have to figure something else out. Like it isn't that you're not a hard worker, it isn't that you're not skilled, but you're gonna have to learn how to get along with people." And it was that moment where I like really made this like real conscious decision. And I read a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that was like my first like, oh wow, like that totally makes sense, And so, and all the rest of my life, that's what like triggered reading books. I love books because some of these really, really powerful, super smart people that have learned a lot in their life, they go their entire life in 50 years and then they write this book, and in 10, 12 hours, you can absorb everything that took them 50 years to learn. And so I don't know, I try to read a couple books a month, and that was like one of the very first books that I ever read was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Great book. But it really taught me a lot, like how to communicate better, more effectively, because everybody wants the same thing. Like we all want to, we all want to be needed. We all want to contribute. Like we all want security, and I just used to get really frustrated with people. Like, why does this guy not see that? Well, this is what we're trying to do. Well, did you tell him? Did you tell him what the goal was? Like, don't you, and so, effective communication. If I could go back and tell myself anything, is how to effectively communicate people, show them the goal and show them how to get there.
Since you started welding, have you had any days where you wanted to quit, where you're like, look, this is killing me?
I'm a very forward thinker because logically, I think whatever took place in the past, I can't change it. Mm-hmm. And so we should learn from those mistakes, but progress, not perfection. Progress forward. Just go forward. Don't worry. Like, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah, you're going to screw things up. Yeah, you're going to get fired. Yeah, you're going to bust a welding test. Yeah, you're going to. So what? What do you take from that moment? What can you learn for the future? Look forward. Don't look backwards. That's what I mean. Like, if I could tell people anything, if they're struggling, look forward. They're like, you can always do it better the next time. You can always make progress. Somebody asked me that, like, did you ever have a day that just really sucked? And because of my mentality, like, I don't hold grudges. We can have us an all and out screaming match. End of the day,
let's go eat lunch.
Yeah, let's go eat lunch. It's like, because I can't change, something that took place in the past. I can definitely apologize for it and say, hey, make commitments for better in the future, whatever. But I think back to like there was a day when it was 30 below, the wind was blowing, and my feet were absolutely cold. And my whole body was cold, and I moved. I was fabbing a bunch of 2-inch pipe for this blow-off line, and I ended up moving over behind my truck to kind of block the wind. But, the bottom of the truck, all that cold wind blowing on my feet, and so the rest of my body was like manageable. I mean, like somebody said, well, tell me the worst day you ever had. I'm like, I don't know, that was it. Like, and I had to kind of like search my memory. Like, every day was incredible. Like, I loved it. I like being a part of something, solving problems, with a skill set that is hard. You had a weld test to get on that job. Like I don't know. There was a day my feet were cold. That's the best I can say. Like all the other time, I love it. It was the best thing I ever did.
That makes it amazing.
Yeah,
Tyler, this has been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Roger. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the work that you're doing for this industry, for this nation. There's not enough people telling the trade stories, and like I said earlier, this is one of the greatest national security threats we face as a nation, the lack of people going in these trades. And look, second oldest profession, plumbing, super important, protects the health of the nation. A lot of people don't realize that. So thank you.
Thank you too. I love watching you and what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
All right, brother.